This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's family.
All right, getting close to the season opener for the Arizona State Sun Devils, August 31st at Sun Devil Stadium against Southern Utah. Let's get an expert's opinion on who's going to be the quarterback that night. Brad Denny from the Speak of the Devils podcast right here on Arizona's family. He actually posts this podcast, so any podcast that we actually have to post, I have to call Brad, and he's at his hockey game, and I have to say, hey, can you post this? And you say, hold on a second, I'm in a fight, and then you come back and post it. So thanks for all you do for Sun Devil Nation and for the Extra Point podcast.
You know, I wear many hats, happily so. So, you know, a lot of work to be done. Always a lot of good, sports content coming down on the Extra Point feed. So can't let the public down. You
can't. Okay, so the public very interested. The number one question, Kenny Dillingham, first-year head coach, who's going to be his quarterback? As you've been able to be at practices, they're open. You get to watch with your own eyes. What are you seeing out there? Who do you feel like is going to be the quarterback when Southern Utah comes to town?
This is a much more interesting question now than just a couple weeks ago. Coming out of spring practice, Trenton Bourguet was the clubhouse leader. He obviously was the returning veteran, had the rapport with the teammates, and he just played a lot better. In fact, the Drew Pyne, the Notre Dame transfer, he came over, and a lot of people thought he might be just kind of handed that job. Not the case. I mean, he kind of struggled in spring, and so Trenton, I think, will open up fall camp with a sizable lead. That lead kind of collapsed pretty quick because Drew Pyne showed a lot of improvement from spring to fall camp. He was more quick to process within the pocket. He took more shots downfield. And, unfortunately, he suffered that hamstring injury on Saturday at the Camptown Zone of scrimmage. That kind of his status is still TBD. But that kind of opened the door then for Jaden Rashada, the four-star prospect. And obviously, folks that follow college football know the story there. But in spring ball, he started off a little bit slow. The staff was very, just easing him into the process. For the first week, he basically kind of watched a lot of team stuff and a little bit more added to his plate. And fall camp, he has really taken tremendous strides. He also, like Pyne, has shown off a willingness to attack downfield. And Kenny Dillingham, after today's scrimmage at Mountain America Stadium.
Thank you. Yes, that's taken me a little while to get that to roll off the tongue. The mountain.
Yeah. He
isn't it two buttes, by the way? Is that a mountain? I guess a mountain.
I guess technically, yeah, because echoes from the buttes in the fight.
There
song.
we go.
So,
okay. Yeah. Okay.
So Rashada, again, showing off that very impressive arm talent. I mean, you see why he was a fringe 5-star prospect. You also see why he's just still a true freshman. I mean, there's moments that just like experience only can fix those issues, but the arm talent is there. Like there's a different zip coming off the ball. Bourguet is a guy that's more comfortable in kind of that point guard role, and that's kind of what this offense asks of its quarterbacks, to just get the ball to the playmakers in 2.5 seconds or so. But there's something about Rashada right now and the strides he's making that Kenny Dillingham is very impressive. He was asked about what are the qualities that he's looking at for the quarterback. It's explosive plays and not making a whole lot of turnover-worthy plays. A little bit later on, he said that anytime that Jaden Rashada's in the field, explosive plays happen. So I think that, while Trenton entered fall camp with a sizable lead, I think right now it was very close, I think, with him and Pyne. And now I think with what we've seen the last couple of practices, especially with the willingness to stretch the field and challenge that opposing defense, I think Rashada has closed that gap, and I think we're entering into a pretty critical couple of days.
When it comes to winning games, though, in the way this team is built, can they win games with Bourguet managing the game and making the right throw and moving the ball down the field? Do they have a defense that you feel like can go out there and play well enough to just put enough points on the scoreboard to win? Or are they going to need an explosive quarterback who can go put 30 or 40 on the board to compete here in this last year of the Pac-12?
That's a really good question. And obviously, Sun Devil fans know last year the defense was bad. I mean, 2 years ago, they were really good and then regressed horrifically last year to one of the worst in the conference. But they made the change that defensive coordinator Brian Ward came over from Washington State. And one of the reasons why was that he brings a very aggressive, chaotic defense. And Kenny Dillingham, when he was at Oregon, he had to play against them. So he saw firsthand, like, that's going to be my guy. That's going to be my DC. And we've seen in spring ball and in fall camp that the defense, more days than not, has the offense's number. They have been getting after it. The pass rush is significantly improved from a season ago. Now, there are questions on the offensive line, so you have to wonder how much of it is in the offensive line, just still trying to find its footing, versus the defense getting after it and being aggressive. And so I think that could play into the kind of the quarterback position here, because I think that if this defense kind of is able to be more of what we're seeing in practice and getting after it and making plays in the backfield, and they have I think the secondary especially is a strength. Linebackers, you have some experience, but I feel pretty good there. Some questions about the defensive interior in terms of their depth beyond their two starters. But I think the defense should be significantly improved, and so that could be in a situation where you have a game manager in Bourguet. And I don't mean the game manager as a slight, because there is a lot of explosive playmakers on this team. Elijah Badger, Jalen Conyers are two of the best pass catchers in this conference. Xavier Guillory has been a standout weapon as well. Some other wide receivers and running backs that should be pretty potent weapons. So it could be a situation where you don't necessarily have the potent offense of like a Bo Nix Oregon last year that Dillingham helmed, but you still have better defense and still have enough production offensively. Or do you kind of maybe put your chips a little bit more in the center and just go in with a Jaden Rashada situation where you're going to have those freshman moments and those valleys, but man, those peaks are pretty tantalizing.
They are. As a freshman though, and not having a ton of time to build chemistry with his receivers, and I feel like there is some of that with Bourguet from a year ago, and a guy who's been there and he's done it under the lights. Do you feel like Kenny Dillingham it really feels like he needs to make a splash here as he tries to ignite the Valley and engage the Valley and activate. That's what I was looking for. Activate the Valley. Do you feel like he needs to do this to activate the Valley to start Rashada, or do you think they can start slow, see how they're doing, be in some games, and then bring Rashada along a little more slowly?
Nothing activates the Valley, and as you know, that in this city, in this sports market, more than winning. And so I think that you might have a situation where Bourguet might be the safer option to start things out. He has, as you mentioned, he has that rapport. He played last year with Conyers, with Badger, and some of the key playmakers on this Sun Devil offense. He's a guy with a football IQ off the charts, even though the physical tools, he's not the biggest guy, doesn't have necessarily the strongest arm, but he just kind of knows what the other 21 guys on the field are doing. But is he going to be able to execute that at the level that we saw near kind of the back half of last season? We will see. I mean, he's had some pretty solid practice. He's had some times where it's like those limitations might be showing up in terms of maybe not getting the ball out to the sideline throws that are kind of putting in danger. But then again, I mean, Rashada could be a situation where if you need that kind of injection of enthusiasm, or if the early returns in conference play just aren't getting there, you can pull him out. I do think that the initial plan was for Rashada to redshirt. Of course, the NCAA has a rule where you can play in 4 games and then still maintain that redshirt year, because there's no question that Rashada is the quarterback of the future for this program. But is he the quarterback of the now? The chances, I think, are much greater now and over the last 10 days or so in the performances we've seen in practice than they were. And it could be a situation where it's just like you just wants to get things going on the right foot. You have a whole lot of new faces, like over 50 new scholarship players on this roster, and just like, all right, so let's rebuild. Might be just down to the studs. Let's go and with the guys that are take their lumps now. It's kind of, we've seen that in the NFL. Like it used to be, you have to have the rookie wait for a year or two, and but those days are gone now. It's like if you have a talented quarterback that you believe is it's the future cornerstone, throw him to the fire.
Interesting. All right, so win-loss this year for ASU. How do you think's penciled out?
It's going to be interesting. They got to collect a lot of wins in the first half of the schedule, because there's in the non-conference. I think Oklahoma State in week 2 is a winnable game. Fresno State also, I think, is very winnable. Both squads lost a lot from last year, and I think the big thing is 8 home games. That's going to be a huge thing. The second half of the schedule is far more daunting, I think. I do think, though, that if the defense is able to kind of play to a similar level that we've seen in practice, and if you are able to get decent quarterback play, whether it is Rashada, Bourguet, or if Pyne is able to come back and kind of build upon the trajectory he was on prior to his injury, I do think that this could be a bowl team. I know the national media is pretty low on, and rightfully so. They might just see a team that's coming off a 3-9 season, brand new coach, 50 new players, and just kind of that I believe they're 10th in the Pac-12 media poll. But I do think that especially after the top 5 teams in this conference, there's a lot of parity in the Pac-12, and if you have decent quarterback play and some decent defense, they can make a run with a lot of home games. So I would say, I'll say 6-6, and they slide into the LA Bowl or something of that ilk.
Hey, we will take that, or maybe what's the Tony the Tiger Bowl here on? Is it still the Tony the Tiger Bowl?
The Sun Bowl is
Yes.
Yeah, it still has the Tiger.
The Tiger, yes.
Tony the Tiger.
Man, bowl season, can't wait. So we have some big news. You're actually going to be making more appearances on the Arizona's Family airwaves. So tell us what you have coming up on the Speak of the Devils podcast and where we can find your material.
Yeah, in addition to just the regular feed, this is year 13 of the Speak of the Devils podcast, available everywhere you get your podcast. You're happy to report that we'll be coming to the airwaves of Arizona's Family Sports Network. Our first episode will premiere August 30th. And of course, ASU's week 1 game is on a Thursday, so we'll be with you the night before the season opener against Southern Utah. Then thereafter, with every other game on Saturday, we'll be with you on Thursday evenings with a re-air on Saturday. So Joe Healy and I have a lot of good ideas to talk a lot of Sun Devil football in what should be a pretty interesting year, with beyond just the quarterback and the activation of this valley, and to what extent, we'll see.
Well, looking forward to that. So yeah, the AZ Family Sports Network, that's where you're going to be able to watch the Phoenix Suns as well. Channel 13 on cable, by your antenna, channel 44 over there. You can find his Extra Point podcast. The Speak of the Devils podcast, the same place you can find the Extra Point podcast on azfamily.com, wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to wrap it up. Brad, will you post this podcast after we finish this podcast?
First thing I'll do.
Okay, thanks so much. The Extra Point podcast is production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com. Arizona.